Call the meeting to order. First item is the revenue neutral hearing. Is there anybody here that would like to speak to that? Seeing none, we'll close that hearing. Open up budget amendment hearing. Is there anybody that'd like to speak to the proposed budget amendment? Seeing none, close that hearing and open up the budget hearing. Is there anybody that'd like to speak to the budget for the city? Seeing none, we'll close that hearing. First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Been moved and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item is the consent agenda.
I have I would like to make a change in the minutes of the last meeting,
Okay.
and it's on, well, if I can find it. Well, what it has to do, Amarillo can probably find it for me, but, here we go, I found it, never mind. On number 5, under new business, the first sentence says, in the packet is a proposal to rehab the pool, and that is not what happened.
You're right.
So I would like to change that to say that the proposal to rehab the pool was not obtained by the council previously in the packet.
Okay.
Do I need to make a motion for that?
You can say as amended.
Yeah.
Yes.
As amended.
As, okay.
Well, no, I think we need to vote to amend the
Yeah,
minutes
I think so.
and then a vote to approve the
Okay.
consent.
So I move to change the wording in the minutes as proposed.
Second.
Been moved and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
I abstain.
Yeah, over here.
Okay. Motion passes 4-0, 4-1. Okay. Actually, an abstention goes to.
It has to be recorded previously.
Now, consent agenda as amended.
You need a motion for it?
Yeah.
I move to present the I move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
Been moved and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Abstain.
Motion passes. Next, public comment. Is there anybody here that'd like to speak to something that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, special reports and presentations. Chief?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just wanted to take one quick minute to introduce to you Ricardo Rick Herrera. Rick is our new hire. He's replacing a person that retired from our agency back in November, but it took us quite a while to find the right person, and Rick is it. He is new to law enforcement, but he is not new to service. He is a Army veteran, and we were very, very fortunate to find him, and he find us. So his family is in Scranton, but he ships off and Monday starts the academy in Hutch. But I wanted to have him before you, introduce him to you so he could say hello, and if you had any questions, feel free to ask. But just wanted to introduce him.
Good luck at the academy.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Next item, old business, common consumption area. As we spoke about this last meeting, some changes were made to the ordinance that were uploaded to the packet. I believe, Dakota, correct me if I'm wrong, it was the time from 11 a.m. to midnight.
The time had been from 8 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. and now it's from 11 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. So midnight is the close off point.
Is there anybody from the public like to speak to this agenda item? Seeing none,
Am I reading this correctly, that it is from Sunday to Saturday, 7 days a week,
That's how it's proposed right now.
from 11 o'clock, or from 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock at night?
Essentially, yeah.
Okay, I was approached.
Hang on, Jerry, we have a,
Can I ask a question? Or I have to-
you have to come up.
Nikki Manbeck, 1097 North 400 Road. Did you get an answer to last week's, or last month's question about if all the bars were included with the minor, serving a minor?
I did not get an answer to that. It's not in the statute, but does not mean it's not someplace in regs, like a regulation to that effect. So there's nothing in the statute saying that any member of the, any establishment in the common consumption area is liable for any of the behavior of anyone else in the common consumption area. But from the reg, I couldn't find anything in the regs. Doesn't mean that the reg doesn't exist that has that. So I had reached out to the Kansas League municipalities to see if they had an answer, and I hadn't heard back yet.
Okay.
So based on my look, my initial answer would be no, you're not liable for the behavior of others. That's part of the reason why the cups are labeled as such, so it knows where the drink came from. But I can't say for certain because I haven't been able to get through everything, get an answer from folks who've been dealing with this for the last couple of years. It's been implementation.
Okay. But this is not going to vote today, right?
It's at the council's discretion, it's the second reading of it, so it's if the council wants to act on it, they can. They may.
And if they don't, it'll go back to committee where I would think that you would want some of the bar's input on this decision.
Yeah, and that's up to the council's discretion if they want to send it back.
Okay,
to
there's my
committee.
public comment. I would like to be included in the discussion of the common consumption ordinance. Okay.
Anybody else from the public like to speak to this agenda item? Seeing none, we will open up council.
First of all, doesn't he have to be recused
Why?
because you have a bar?
No, doesn't.
Isn't that a conflict of interest?
It's a conflict of interest. We raise property taxes and my business is affected by it. I mean, Dakota, do I need to recuse myself?
So you're not making the contract, there's not a
Yeah.
specific pecuniary interest that you have in this passage of a common consumption area. That's not to say the law would not potentially impact your business, like it might impact any other business in Baldwin City. I mean, that's when we pass laws and ordinances in the community, it's gonna have an impact on business perhaps. That being said, it's wholly up to you, it's at your discretion if you want to, if you think that because your establishment is inside the CCA, that you, out of the best interest or your own personal belief, would like to step out, that's fine, but you're under no obligation to do so
I
whatsoever.
have been nothing but objective in this role as a council member, and I don't plan to deviate from that.
Yeah, and so again, so if there was a, if the city.
And I'm
was making-
undecided on the issue.
Yeah, and the city is making an agreement with your establishment directly, that's where the conflict of interest comes into play, is if we're going to be hiring, buying, purchasing something from a business that you own or operate. And so, to give an example is, if you owned a car dealership and the city was gonna buy a vehicle from your car dealership, that would be
No
something
way,
you'd have to
black and
recuse
white.
yourself from based upon your own specific pecuniary interest, so.
Okay, thank you.
I was approached by, evidently there is somebody who has a truck that they sell alcohol out of. Like a vendor that comes around to different places and sells alcohol for different occasions. Is that going to be covered in this consumption thing? And if so, how is it going to be?
I mean, I believe they'd still have to get the proper licenses that they're required to get through the city, but I'd have to.
There's a clause in there that stipulates that anybody outside of, anybody in that
Oh, that's.
district that's is selling alcohol has to get a separate permit.
In what we've got written in
Yeah,
here?
it's in, I thought I underlined it.
in here says a general retailer, means a person has to have a license to sell cereal and malt beverages.
That would be it, where it was a,
Yeah, I think they have to have their proper licenses and everything.
It's number F, under Rotary Club.
Now, before they obtain a license from the city, do they have to pay the $15 to get a license from the state?
Amber deals with our liquor licenses, so I would ask her.
We cannot issue one until
They
they
have to have a
have.
liquor license before they can get one from you.
Do what?
They have to have a liquor license from the state before they get something from us.
Yeah, and then they'd have to opt into the common consumption area.
Well, most bars have got liquor licenses.
Yeah, but they still have to opt in to be able to serve.
I'm sorry?
They still have to opt into the area in order to be able to legally serve alcohol that can leave their establishment to be transported within that CCA area. Not everybody's just automatically included.
Number 3-607.
Okay.
Have something.
thank you.
I really don't like this. Running 7 days a week, from 11 o'clock till midnight or thereafter. I would much rather see it from 4 o'clock in the afternoon or something like that to 10 o'clock at night, as opposed to those long hours.
How do these hours line up with our brick and mortar selling of liquor?
They're smaller,
These are less?
yes.
What was your question?
What's the time on it?
I think a brick and mortar can sell at 9 AM till 2 AM
9 to 2, is that what we did?
or 7.
I think she said it was 6 AM. Can you legally start selling at 6 AM?
6 a.m.
So 6 AM.
I can.
So people can be drinking at 6 AM inside the building.
And
And so I'm not sure what limiting the CCA area is going to impact people's consumption.
that's enclosed.
Right,
That's not out on the street.
right.
Now,
So why are you not in favor of?
if you got little old ladies going to church on Sunday, do they need to drive downtown and see people drinking when they come home from church?
That's a personal preference. I'm not going to speculate what little old ladies would or wouldn't like to see coming out of church. It wouldn't bother me.
Well, you're not a little old lady.
So I can't, you're asking me to speculate. I don't know, Barry, I mean, that's something to consider, but I'm just trying to understand, I don't disagreeing with your thought process, I'm trying to understand why you would want to limit the hours on the CCA versus normal selling time.
I just don't think we need that long an hour.
I don't think we need it every day either.
And I certainly don't think we need it 7 days a week.
So I-
What would you like to see?
How about Thursday to midnight on Saturday?
Thursday to midnight on Saturday.
Say from 4 o'clock Thursday till midnight on Saturday. The closing at midnight Friday as well as Saturday and as well as Thursday.
That would probably cover a lot of the
Takes in a
events that
lot
are
of the
down.
athletic stuff.
What?
Takes in a lot of the athletic stuff.
The events downtown too.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like to me that we need to maybe discuss this more.
Yeah.
especially if Nikki hasn't gotten her answer that she was looking for, or not that she wanted, but an answer, period.
Mhm.
I'm fine with that. If you want to kick it back to committee, we can.
Yeah.
Do we want to just open it back up in committee and then?
Yeah.
I'm fine with whatever. That's, yeah, it sounds like we need more input on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to make sure we get ample input. from-
When's our next committee meeting, Susan?
Right.
Ha, right now.
I know, usually I have this memorized.
I think it's next Monday.
I think so, yeah,
Yeah.
I believe so.
Okay, so it would be the 26th? So it wasn't yesterday.
No.
Well, you can't, I mean.
Oh, it's because we already had our June,
Yeah.
but that's okay, we can have a second one.
So
We
you
only
wanna-
pushed that one because it was
Yeah.
a date conflict. So we'll have a
26th.
CDC meeting on the 26th.
So do we need?
4 o'clock, second floor, City Hall.
So do we need a motion to table it?
Now, we're just moving back to committee.
Okay. I think that's a good idea.
Maybe some more guidance going to the committee before we take off from this topic?
Yeah, I think we
Yeah.
definitely need guidance, because this is,
Right.
Yeah, and I don't know what guidance to give. I always approach this stuff, what are we trying to accomplish? And then you figure out how to do that. So,
I mean-
what are we trying to accomplish with this ordinance?
I don't know that it's an active goal of accomplishing anything. My understanding was that it's being brought up now because the state now allows it to be more relaxed. And so we were revisiting our policy to see if maybe we want to relax ours. Am I wrong? I don't know.
yeah, and I mean, you know, as all of us, I think, have seen in the downtown events, it's essentially a common consumption area.
Right, you see
So-
people doing it already.
This line's, I mean, it's no different, I guess the way I feel about it, it's no different than our side-by-side ordinance when we, you know, licensed them and
Right.
regulated them. That was just
Because
taking
it was
our
already
ordinances and aligning it with what we're allowing
Right.
in the community already. So,
So that is what the goal is, to align with what's been somewhat of a practice, although not sanctioned.
yeah.
And I guess the thought, and I'm not speaking for everybody, what I heard you say was just more aligning with, you know, a relaxed atmosphere downtown area for whatever hours we decide. So then it comes down to what hours make sense. If that's the goal, does it really make sense 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? Or is it more specific to times when, you know, we've seen people take advantage of that, you know, of their own open or common carry, and just make it legal, where people who wanted to but didn't because it wasn't legal would then be able to do it.
Well, at the other meeting, I said that I didn't have a problem with the common consumption area when there's events going on, but I don't believe that it should be 8 to midnight, 7 days a week. Because I think it's great when everybody's downtown, streets are blocked, and everybody can just mingle and have a drink. And I think that's great, but I can't see this 7-day-a-week thing.
Well, and that's why it was changed from the 11, is because you wanted to limit the hours.
Right.
I see your
But
point.
I
I mean,
also want to limit the
do
days.
we see people really wanting to, or have an advantage of getting one to go and walking through the common consumption area? Where are they going? There's not an event going on, there's not a need to really take that and go outside. You know,
Right.
on a
I
normal
agree.
weeknight.
Right.
Where are you going? I just thought, I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's what
Yeah.
you were saying.
Right.
Do you really need it when there's not an event? I can see the event. You're gonna go around and see what's going on, stop in other places, but, you know, if I'm in one place, you know, do I really need to take one? Even if I'm going to the next place, do I actually need to be able to carry one down there?
I guess that'd be a Dakota question. If we establish a common consumption area, and it's just for special events, can you outline that, or do you have to pass a permit or something each special event? for them. Because I think that was kind of the purpose of a common consumption area, to not have to do the permits every single time. 'Cause I think you have to do
Well,
something to
yeah.
open it up
Yeah,
each time.
I think it would be difficult because you add events, it's not gonna be in the ordinance, you have to spell out the events or define an event that would encompass anything you're currently doing or would do in the future, so.
Or you do it on Friday and Saturday nights, and that covers pretty much any event that we have downtown.
Right. True.
I mean, devil's advocate, and I really honestly don't have an opinion either way, but let's say, I mean, the Royals are 4.5 games of the wild card ahead right now. Let's say the Royals win the World Series and people want to go bar hop. I mean, are you really going to slap them on the wrist for carrying their beer around the common consumption area that was okay 8 hours ago? You know, I don't know. I mean, at some point, it's going to feel a little ridiculous where you're like, oh, I can, you know. But maybe
And now you're getting into the whole enforcement piece, which is a whole
Yeah,
other.
but it's relevant.
Well, potentially.
If it's not relevant, then what are we doing this at all?
Right.
That's exactly right.
Right. We don't
It's
have.
not relevant.
That's a great question.
Well, it is relevant to the people that want to, but again,
Yeah.
don't want to follow the laws. Whether it's enforced or not, I mean,
Right.
there's a population out there that wouldn't mind walking around with a drink, but don't want to because of fear of,
I don't really see people wanting to walk around downtown on a Monday afternoon.
I'm saying during the events.
Okay.
During
Okay.
third Fridays, they want to walk around with a beer, go see the shops.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
But
That's the purpose of this, is for the people that wouldn't do that because it is illegal.
Right, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
That's how I see it.
but there's not much going on Monday afternoon
Don't disagree.
that you can't.
I just
not
don't,
drink.
I just think limiting it to special events only is gonna get confusing.
Yeah.
And, okay, can we do it this night? Can we do it? This technically is a special event kind of, you know, I don't know.
Well, to your point, I think we're just giving the committee some things to think about.
Yeah.
You know,
Sure.
Fridays and Saturdays makes sense, and then if the Royals do win the World Series, we can do a special,
Right. 'Cause
yeah,
that's-
we can do a one-time, I mean, like we do now, right?
They make the playoffs.
But there's ways to handle your situation without
Maybe it's.
opening it up.
Maybe it's contingent on whether the streets are blocked.
Well, but that was the
That-
purpose that we didn't do it last time because of the time and effort and cost to the city to block off the street each time for a
Mhm.
common consumption area. That's why the state relaxed it to where now it's a painting dictating where that area is. Because that was the law before, that you had to block it off with
But
physical.
with that being said, when you have like the special, Friday nights, the, whatever it is, the third Friday nights, so those booths are out in the, essentially in the street, and you wouldn't have your, I don't think you'd mark that, because you don't want them out there every other time, right?
What do you mean you wouldn't mark that?
Well, you wouldn't have that marked for your common consumption area.
She's saying that if it deviates, if it's only certain days of the week, you're gonna have the mark either there or not there. Otherwise, you're implying that you can if the mark's there.
The mark's there all the time. It's painted.
But
on the
then,
street.
doesn't that mean that you're indicating to the public that they can drink within that common consumption area?
There's
Is it-
signage.
is
Every
it-
weekend, would you have the road blocked then?
No, you don't have to block the road for a common consumption area.
But you have to mark where you can have the drinks.
It has to be
And if you have
marked
some
by
in the
painting.
streets,
By paintings on the streets and signage.
but are you gonna paint the streets separate for special events? Because normally you're not gonna have people in the streets. Does that make sense?
No, it'll be at the intersection, it'll be a line,
Crosswalks,
yeah. I
so
mean,
you
it's
couldn't
not-
have them at the booths then? You see what I'm
No,
saying?
it'll be anywhere,
Anywhere within the street
Within,
area
so
or the sidewalk.
once you get inside there, you can go all the way, I mean, that's what the sign should have to tell. There'll be a line you cross, and then you can go up and hang a right or left until you cross the other line, then you're out of it. I mean, we're not gonna paint the streets a
I
different
thought,
color.
I thought it was only on the sidewalks
No,
for the common consumption.
because if the street's
I
shut
think so.
down,
But, right, if you shut the streets down.
yeah.
Are we creating a
Are you
problem
talking
too for law
about like-
enforcement?
Oh, yeah.
Monday afternoon.
Yeah.
They're wandering
Well, it's already
down the
happening.
street.
Yes, I don't want.
Yeah,
them in the
that's a good
streets.
point,
And what about the guy that just up
I
checks
guess
everywhere he goes?
That's where I'm confused, and I'm not making it clear.
I mean, if it's already happening, I don't,
Huh?
if it's already happening and that's not an issue, I don't think that's gonna change.
It'd be an issue if it happened in front of your building.
If they what? If what happened?
It'd be upchucked.
I think that if they're
Speculating.
drinking that much and they're doing that,
They do that now and they
they're
don't even have
probably,
this.
common consumption area isn't gonna regulate that.
Plus they stop in the urinate in doorways and,
I don't, and that's happening now
yes, it's happening now.
without a common consumption
But
area.
it's, why increase it?
I don't think that somebody that drinks that much, you're gonna increase it with a common consumption area, is what I'm getting at.
Do you drink?
I do drink.
You must not drink that much.
No, I don't.
Well, not everybody that drinks has to piss themselves, Jerry.
So, do you have enough input to go forward?
Yeah, we can take it back to the committee.
Yes, we will take it back to
We
committee.
diverge.
Take up chucking and peeing on doorways.
And that's a consideration, then you can discuss.
Good? Yeah. Okay. All right, next agenda item, food truck ordinance. Is there anybody here who'd like to speak to this agenda item?
Oh, okay.
While you guys are coming up, just the changes that were made was what was discussed at the last meeting. $25 a day permit fee up to $200 a year, 8-hour time limit. So that's quick synopsis, right, Dakota?
That's the only stuff that's,
The only two amendments were made were that the total cost for the permits went from $500 down to $200 maximum for the year. So so instead of, if you do 8 days or more, you're maxed out 200. Where before it was $500, so it would have to be, at that point, you're talking about 20 days to max out. And then the time limitation originally was 3 hours, and now it's been expanded to 8 hours per day. So if a food truck wants to run from noon to 8 or 11 to 7, or 4 p.m. to midnight, then there's no set time frame. So the time frame is around the clock. So if you thought it'd be a good idea to run the food truck from 2 a.m. to 10 a.m., you can do that.
Or from the day before 4 p.m. until
Yeah.
2 a.m.
Yeah.
I changed my mind, I'm
Okay.
I had
go
questions.
ahead.
Because there
Yeah,
was-
you go first.
Nikki Manbeck, 1097 North 400 Road. I had a question for you on this, because what was added that was new is the license exemptions. But I don't remember seeing that in the first,
That was not changed, that was in the original.
that was in the original, okay. So,
And is that, we're talking about like all the things that are not required to have a mobile vendor
Yeah.
license, right?
that's what I'm trying to figure out. So, for example, the last one says brick and mortar restaurants already operating as a business in the city of Baldwin City. So one, what constitutes as a restaurant? Does the bullpen constitute as a restaurant?
So are you being, it's not ABC, are you following KHA regulations as a restaurant? I mean, do you have?
I have a food handler's license, yes.
So yeah, then that would be, and that would only be applied to the brick and mortar itself. Doesn't mean you do not have to get a mobile food vendor license to sell out of your brick and mortar, but you don't, because you're a restaurant, doesn't mean you can operate a mobile food vendor outside your restaurant.
So I can't invite a food truck in from out of town without them doing all these regulations.
So if you had your own food truck or another food truck showed up that was not associated with you, regardless of whose it is, it has to follow these regulations.
Okay, so last time I was here, very nervous. I've gotten a little bit better this time. I'm not gonna read, I did have a speech, but I'm not gonna read off of it. I'm just gonna try to talk to you guys. As a business owner, I don't think that there's anyone sitting on the city council that knows how difficult it is to bring in a food truck to this town. Food trucks are wanted. You see that by the citizens. They want food trucks. Last month, 2 months ago, whatever it was, I had to guarantee $1,200 to get that Chinese food truck because the towns, that's all they talk about is Chinese food. They want it. I got it here, but I had to guarantee $1,200 just to bring them here. They're not gonna come. They're not gonna come to Baldwin City with a population this size with these restrictions. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. The second thing I wanted to talk about is maybe the due diligence that was done before this was brought to city council. Many of you might know that back in 2019, when I opened up the Nook, I had to change an ordinance in this town in order to suit the needs that I needed for the Nook. The city council and Casey all told me that I needed to go and do my due diligence. I needed to talk to the church across the street, I needed to talk to Baker University, and I needed to find out if they had any objections or any additional input to change this ordinance before it even got to this point. So that's what I did. So it's a little disheartening that this was brought in this way without our local food trucks knowing about it, and we do have 3 local food trucks, without our businesses that are affected by it. So what I came here today to ask you, and this one, because I'm pretty proud of my last paragraph, so I'm gonna go ahead and just read this one. So I want to conclude that I have a request for you. The timing of this ordinance is less than ideal. Mobile food vendors are in the height of their busy season right now. Some of our food trucks, they couldn't attend here today because they're prepping for events that are happening this week. The bullpen, I have food trucks set out over the next 2 months already. The Bash, a non-city event, from my understanding, has food trucks already lined up. I would like to request that the city council put a hold on this ordinance until December or January of this year. That way, we can all do our due diligence, we can talk to the people that this would affect, we can talk to the food vendors and get clear direction as to where we're going with this. Because I don't think it's anyone's intention after the last meeting, I don't think it's your intention for our food trucks, our local food trucks to leave here, and I don't think it's your intention to not bring in food trucks to our town. I think no one's objecting putting an ordinance in place. That was clear by everyone. Putting an ordinance in place is perfect, but getting the right ordinance for our town is what's important. So if we could put a hold on this, it would take a little bit of pressure off of the local businesses and the food trucks when they're in the height of their busy season right now. And we are here to answer any questions if you wanted to call us back up to ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jess?
Do we have a,
Go ahead, Jess.
Jess?
Listen, Jerry, it's my turn.
is it your turn?
They called me.
You didn't ask me.
I didn't have to ask you. They called me.
Oh, he called you up there?
After it's my turn.
I didn't hear him say, honey, come here. Well,
What do you got, Jess?
All right, Jessica Tyler, 104 10th Street. I just wanted to sort of circle back on a few things that Nikki touched on. The due diligence, we talked about that before. I just want to make sure that, again, we find the right one for our community now, because I'm afraid that if we jump into making a decision now, then in 3-5 months, when the season is different, we may need to adjust that at that point. So I think that some due diligence would be good. I don't know if it's possible to take it back to committee, kind of like with the common consumption, and maybe we could do some more talk on that so that there could be some more back and forth. I think that might be good. Kind of like what the question was back with common consumption, what are we looking for out of it? And so that's what I've been trying to figure out over the last couple weeks. I had the opportunity to talk to almost everybody, and I appreciate you responding to my emails and phone calls and meeting up with me. Sorry I didn't meet you, Julie. But I'm curious, you know, again, we said why, because we didn't have one. I think it's great that we have one now. We need to figure out what the right thing is for us. $200 still seems like a lot to me. As a food truck owner, I can tell you in larger communities, it's less. Gardner's a perfect example. They're $50 a year, you know, and they're a much larger population. One of the small populations for the town, Edgerton, they're $150. However, that includes all of the intermodal, all of those warehouses and stuff over there. So that makes a huge population increase, but still they're only $150. So I still think 200 may be a little bit much if it's that we're circling to it for health and safety. I think that if we have 10 to 20 food trucks a year, the $1,000 to $2,000 that we're talking about isn't a huge amount for our community in terms of for our city council and for our city. It would, I believe, more than cover the administration costs and stuff for taking that stuff through. But if it's really about health and safety, and then maybe it would be better to set a lesser fee in the beginning. You could always go back and add more if you want, if you feel like that's, there's a lot of food trucks coming in. But I just think that that might be something that we should circle back to as well because of our population size. There was one other thing. Oh, kind of also with the common consumption law. If we're gonna be serving alcohol till 2 a.m., I think that, having the food trucks 8 hours, you sort of clarified that, so that was kind of my question. I just was curious, do we have to close at midnight? Because that's kind of how it is now, or something to that effect. I didn't know if there was a time frame, so I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, that if businesses are open till 2, then food trucks could be open till 2 as well. Back to that health and safety. I know I'd rather have someone grab something to eat on their way out, and there aren't any restaurants open at 2, and maybe only one gas station. So, I think that was my 3 things. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak to this agenda item? Seeing none, council discussion?
She pretty much hit on something that I was gonna bring up. And I'll bring it up and see where it goes. If you come in July the 1st, this is your first time with a food truck, and do you have to pay a full fee for the $200 for the whole year, or do you get a break because you're there half a year?
Well, it's by day, so they pay it by day, and then once they hit the $200, then they won't have to anymore. That's how the ordinance is.
Okay, in 1971,
I wasn't born, but okay.
huh?
Said I wasn't born, but all right.
There was a fee for $50,
For food trucks?
and it was to cover investigation fees for peddlers and people who were doing this. Also, I believe, in 5-202, I think it was a $10 fee a day. So it's been said that we didn't have anything on the books about this, but evidently we do.
You're confusing the peddlers
Yeah.
versus the
Well,
food trucks.
The
They're
peddler
different.
goes right, if you go right on with the peddler, you'll come to automotive or wagon type vehicles that are food vendors.
Food.
Yeah, food stuff.
What ordinance number, Jerry?
What did I tell you? And then it changes again in 1985. And it goes to 5207, the streets and sidewalks. But I don't find anything from that point on where it says what the fee would be.
Well, 5207 is no peddler or any other person shall have the exclusive right to any location in the public streets for the purpose of selling or soliciting sales. So that actually would outlaw that they can't have the exclusive right in that area. So I'm not. 5207 actually.
On the application, it's.
Jerry, would you not agree we probably need to update it?
I'm sorry?
Sounds like regardless of what you have there, do you feel we need something updated?
There was an update in 85.
But that's,
It's, that you,
But I don't have anything on that. I
right.
thought I did, but I
So we
don't.
probably need to determine if what we're talking about is an amendment to something or not. That's kind of a separate issue.
right.
I think, I'm trying to get a sense for, I wasn't here last time, a sense for, and I always ask it because I can't think of it another way. What, is there a consensus among the council, city, of what we want to do with food trucks? Because I think that's what we need to decide first, how we want food trucks to be a part of the city. And then you can come up with an ordinance that supports that. If you don't want any food trucks in the city, that's easy. We can put an ordinance saying no food trucks allowed. If we want to promote them, then you probably need to make it fairly easy, affordable, to allow them or have them want to come in, right? And then there's everywhere in between. But until we figure out what it is we want, and I do think we do need more input from brick and mortar and the food truck people to figure out, is there something less than just wide open that makes sense, right? You don't have to pay anything, you just come in, have your licenses, you get a license from us, we check your licenses, make sure, you know, you're meeting the regulations and the state statutes, but then you can come and go as you please. That's one scenario versus you're not allowed at all. So I think we need to decide how we want them to interact with the city. And until we do that, we're gonna be shooting across, we'll come up with a plan and be not quite what we really wanted, because we really didn't know what we wanted yet.
Right.
I think the consensus was we didn't want it to be prohibitive, because we know citizens enjoy the food trucks.
Right.
It was an issue of knowing who's coming in our town and that it's safe, they're licensed, and, you know, we're not just some Joe Schmo off the
Right.
street.
Which makes sense. I don't think anybody disagree. We need to make sure they're properly licensed. And I don't know what our liability is, not having an ordinance and having someone come in that isn't licensed, or having one. And
They have to have
From an
insurance.
insurance perspective, I was wondering what the exposure was.
Right.
If you got, if you had a food truck come in, people got sick, you found out they weren't licensed, and the city didn't
Yeah.
have an ordinance checking that out, what's the exposure to the city? That's, you know, was my biggest concern.
yeah, my concern is it different if you don't have an ordinance and the same thing happens? Well,
Sure.
are we still liable?
Mm.
I mean, it matters, right?
Well,
In an adjoining city or neighboring city, license vendor over there is $100.
Right.
And if you have a separate party, like they listed here as a block party or whatever, it's $25, but it's $100 for the year. That seems pretty reasonable, pretty nice. Annual license fee, you know.
What
Oh,
do you
yeah.
think?
Truck,
Oh, yeah.
there's $15, I think, for the state for truck inspection.
So I did do some math just on our brick and mortar downtown.
Never mind.
Here's one for Emporia.
I'm coming to you next.
Here's one for Emporia for $50.
Julie has,
I try to let one person talk at a time.
well, that's not a good idea in this group.
And,
come on, Julie, you gotta muscle through them.
Yeah.
one thing in this says that the food vendor's license is valid for a period not to exceed 1 year and shall expire on December 31st.
Right.
I think it would be more fair to the trucks that when they get their first license from us, it should go a year to that. So like if they get their license on July 1st, I don't think it should end at December 31st. I think it should go back to the date 1 year later
Yeah.
from when they got it.
So you're proposing just an annual license, not a daily license?
Well, this is just for the license period, instead of, like, if I had a food truck and I wanted to come in and I wouldn't be able to do $200 worth for the rest of the year until December, and then I would have to start over again.
Yeah, but you're saying, but in that scenario, so you'd be paying with this ordinance as it's written, $200 and you can operate for a full year versus $25 each time up to $200.
No, I think you can still keep that in there.
But
I
the
don't
license,
think they should have to start over in January.
yeah, no, I get that point. But their license period would still only be for that 8-hour period. So they'd have to get their new license for that
Well,
next.
could they just pay the 200 and be done with it for the year?
Great point.
I mean, that's something the council can discuss.
So, the way in which it's written, after 8 days of permits, you can then, you don't have to pay another fee. The issue with the daily permit is that you still would have to give notification to the city that you need a permit for that day.
Right.
The option you may be discussing would be an annual permit or a permit for the, whatever period of time remains in the year. So it's a yearly permit that starts January 1 and runs through the end of the year, or on the date applied for or granted for a 365-day period from that date, which will allow a food vendor to apply once, pay a flat rate, and at that point be permitted for the remainder, for that year or the remainder of the year, however the council decides to do it. And I've seen it both ways. I think the more common way to do this, and the way that most states have done this, is a permit that runs through December 31st of the year and starts again on January 1st of the next year, but it is for the calendar year. So if you were to apply for a permit on January 10th, it's good until the end of that year. And it's a one-time flat fee.
Prorated?
Not prorated. It doesn't matter. If you apply for a permit on December 31st, it would end the next day. It's not prorated. There's no refunds for the permit's not granted. It's just a flat fee starting on day one. Now, to Jerry's point about that, if your permit fee is $50 or $100, it's a little easier, I think, for a vendor to say, I can pay $50 on April 1st for the next 9 months than $200 or $500 on that day, or July 1st, rest of the year. But I think that's me speculating.
Yeah.
There are folks who have actual experience running the food vendor trucks who would probably be able to tell you better how that works and the calculations that people use when they decide whether or not to come into a city.
What I was thinking is that if they have to buy a license in January, they're more than likely not gonna have their food trucks very busy in January. So if they started up their business in March, for example, then it would go all the way to the next March. And that would cover their whole scenario of businesses for the months when it's warmer.
So the only, and this council can certainly could put in place a permit process where it's a permit for 365 days based upon the day on which it's approved by the city. The only thing I would say to that, and this is more of an AMRA question than anyone else's question, is if AMRA has to now, let's say there's a dozen or 20, let's say this works out really well, there's a bunch of vendors who want to come to Baldwin City, and we now have 18 different dates that the city's tracking on when a vendor came in and when the permit was allowed. That's where, like the side-by-sides, I think, we were doing, it's an annual permit on the year. It's for the purpose of administration, it's simpler and cleaner to have a single flat fee that starts on the set date and ends on the set date. But if we have 5 of these, maybe that's not too much of a strain on city staff to monitor those in the dates on which they have applied for the permit. The people who also might be, the people you're going to talk about that, most likely is going to be chief, because I'm not sure who is going to be enforcing, checking to see who has permits if it is 2 in the morning or midnight. I don't think city staff will be doing that. They'll be Baldwin City Police Department making sure they have their permit displayed inside their mobile vending unit.
And we could prorate, I mean,
Yeah.
if they get it in July, then they have price.
It's our ordinance.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're talking about details about end goal, we don't even know what it is yet. So I hear what you're saying, but I don't know if that supports what we're trying to do. You said if we make it as easy as possible because we want to promote as many food trucks as we can, it's no fee, get your license, it's good for a year, you gotta renew it every year, and you're free to go. That's no enforcement, no time limit on the day. I mean, that is pro food truck, minimal enforcement, and then the extreme on the other end is we don't allow food trucks. So we had time limits, number of days. I don't know how in the world we're gonna enforce that, administer that. What was the intent of trying to do that, of limiting the number of hours? I mean, what were we going for when that was brought up and discussed?
I think just so that a food truck didn't stay in one spot 365 days.
Yeah, but we also borrowed from some other cities' language just to get an ordinance on paper.
Starting point.
And so I'm gonna speak to that for a second.
Yeah.
So I kinda had a feeling this was gonna go back to committee. I kinda wanted it to go back to committee.
Yes.
I do feel, I do feel regretful that people felt blindsided. I've definitely seen stuff online and I've definitely heard some of the public comments. I don't know that I wanna defend it, but I do wanna clarify it. This would have done no good starting off in committee. We would have just sat there and gone through every line, every dollar amount for 4 weeks, and then ended up here just to even see if council even had a temperature for it. So I'm fine with the way it got in front of council first and then kicked back to committee. I think that's a fine way, especially with ordinances where you get in the weeds on a lot of that stuff. So I'm gonna recommend this goes back to committee. To Scott's point, which committee?
Well, I don't think we should even look at that ordinance. We need to decide how we want to treat food trucks.
That's the point that I'm trying to make.
And
So
that's, if you start with an ordinance, now you have 5 people thinking about what their end goal is, and we're going off in different directions. I think we need to decide what kind of environment are we trying to create, and then it's much easier to write an ordinance around that.
But is the consensus not that we need to check their licenses?
And if that's all we need to do,
But I'm saying, even if starting there at the minimum.
I mean, that's,
So then that's still an ordinance.
right,
So regardless, you're working off of an ordinance.
right, but that's like table stakes. We know that's gonna go into it. And we know there has to be more in the ordinance than that, because you've gotta allow them in. So,
Well, and I think talking to the business owners too, what their
Absolutely.
input is, because we don't want them
Well,
closing down
I agree.
and just have nothing but food trucks in town.
Yeah, and I've had the opportunity I went and talked to most of the businesses, not all of them. There's one that I didn't get to, but, so that I had that information. And most of them, the brick and mortars are, yeah, we need something. They don't say what that something is, they just say we need something. I did also do some math just because I knew that was gonna be one of the things that brick and mortar talked to me about was their property tax and how much that costs them. And the average brick and mortar downtown pays $22 a day in property tax. Between the 4 restaurants that
And
they
then they
have.
have rent on their building and everything else too.
Well,
so-
the property tax is typically included in their rent, but yeah, I just figured,
Right.
I took it down to the bare minimum and, hey, this is,
So are you saying then the $25 a day for the food trucks is about equal to?
it's comparable to what a brick and mortar pays in property taxes
Okay.
per day.
But to Scott's point, is that, are you trying to go apples and apples there? I mean,
You're not
you're
gonna,
trying, you
Right.
you have to define what you
But
want
these
to
are
do.
Two different
Yeah.
business models and.
They need an input.
Fine,
though, I
yeah.
think.
But you still have to compare, I mean,
No,
that's the
you have-
conversation.
No, that's valuable information. Yeah.
yeah.
Right, I gotta go. We'll discuss this in committee.
It's coming.
Still have a quorum.
Yep,
They're dropping like flies. but we still
Take him,
have a quorum.
Jerry.
yeah. Jerry's my date.
I thought.
Yeah, so.
And everybody shows up.
I know, trust me. It was-
So maybe it's better to approach it of what we don't want. So I heard we don't want somebody camping out in the same spot for 365 days. I mean, is that something,
Right.
is that something that, so there
Yeah, at
needs to
some
be,
point, you're just
there
a
need to be,
restaurant.
there need to be limits,
Yeah.
right? So there need to be some kind of limits that are somewhat easily enforceable. So, I mean, that's a target, okay? We gotta set some limits. Ideally, we would not want it to materially impact the brick and mortars. There's no way for us to know ahead of time. But I will say that, we will get information as we go after we do this. And, these ordinances are, as Jerry, I don't know, correctly or incorrectly alluded to, you can change them
Yeah.
if they aren't working.
Right.
So it sounds like we don't want, we want some limit on consecutive days or total days, or, that's where it comes down to,
Yeah, the wording.
And then who's gonna enforce that? And then on the licensing, what's the state do for food handling, and is that an annual every January? I mean, we line up with that? Is any of our food truck people?
Jess, do you want to come up and answer that question?
What's the timing on state licensing?
Yeah, so they renew at the beginning of the year. You have through March 31st to pay for that, but it goes into at the beginning of the year.
And that's food truck specific, or is that just like a
That's
food
Kansas State
thing? Okay.
health inspection that goes through the Kansas Department of Agriculture.
And that's all you need to operate as a food truck, is that license, or is there other licenses that you have to get on an annual basis?
That's the one main license that you
So-
need, and then it's dependent on what you type of.
So does the health
Operation.
department
Why
come
wouldn't
and
we line
check
up with
food trucks at all?
Yes, yeah, every year.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
every year they check your food because they want to make sure that you're able to show that you have the 3 compartment sinks, that you have hot water that's over 120 degrees, you know, that you have refrigeration that's kept at a moderate level.
I know
So,
what they check. but-
yeah, they check all that, and then you
Yeah.
get a license, and then and they tell you, you know, print it out and display it where you can see it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So Jess, while you're up there,
While you're there,
any input on what we've been talking here? I mean, are we kind of getting on track?
Yeah, I think yes. I think it sounds like it from
Yeah,
a
she heard
food
it's going
truck.
back to
I know, I'm like,
committee,
well,
so-
hold on, it's 3 different ways. So as a food truck person,
Yeah.
yes, I think you're clarifying more what you're looking for, first deciding what type of atmosphere you want to offer food trucks, right? So you get to there. As a citizen and resident, like, I want to be safe, and so I'm down with whatever we need to do. The daily fee, that does get to be a little bit of a pain when you work this sort of thing, because it's like, okay, I paid $25 here, or this there, or this there. So the one-time fee does really help. What you said before, like, you know, if you pay it in January and you don't really set up, well, but that's something that we as food truck people sort of know, you know, when you go into that industry in Kansas specifically, the weather's not always. So I think
Well,
the
that's
year is good.
That's good to hear, yeah, okay.
thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
So maybe committee think about lining up with their other licensing on an annual basis? Just a thought,
Mhm.
makes it easy.
So then, is the council wanting to push more towards an annual license versus trying to do a daily license? I think that's, because
So-
that's been kind of a big,
I think that would be easier for everybody. It'd be
So what's
easier
the
for us, it'd be
advantages?
easier
Yeah.
for the food truck, and then they wouldn't have to worry about, I have to go get this license for $25.
It depends on the price of each before I would answer.
Well,
the
it
question.
depends what, you know, if you're a food truck looking to be here multiple days a year, but not every food truck may be wanting to do that.
Huh.
You know, so you come in, you say, well, I know they're doing this third Fridays, I just happen to have this day open because this other thing canceled, now I gotta pay $200 just to be there that one day. There's another side to it.
I'd say that's why you need to make it lower. Is that extra $150 gonna impact us, especially if we make it administratively easy and as enforceable as possible? I think our costs go way down. And promotes inviting food trucks to come in. Maybe it is that one day and they're willing to do $50 for an annual on a big event, and they may never come back.
And the other thing is those food trucks aren't just here in our community, they're paying fees everywhere they go,
That's a good point.
so,
So it is a little competitive on,
yeah.
You
You
know.
know, they'll go to Gardner and pay less than,
yeah.
and not come here,
Yeah, I think it is,
right?
Well, let's be honest, it's not, they're not looking at fees first, they're looking at, am I gonna be able to sell a bunch of food here?
right.
And if that question's no, then the fees are at least secondary.
Well, they impact it, it's the net,
Right,
right?
right. But if it's $200 here and $100 here, and you're gonna sell 4 times as much food in this market over here, the fee's less important.
Correct, but if it's the inverse, it's
Right.
very important.
Right.
And I think what you're saying is a lot more traffic in a Gardner. Sounds like Edgerton's got a captive audience in the intermodals for lunches, and so, I think if we get too aggressive, we might find that we're wanting food trucks and we're not able to get them. I personally like to steer on the promoting them, making it easy and as affordable as possible. Then if we get any feedback or it looks like we're impacting brick and mortars in a big substantial way, then, or other issues with the ordinance, then we adjust. Would just be my input for the committee.
What amount you got in mind? What amount do you have in mind?
I think it's, in my opinion, it'd be nominal, it'd be enough to cover administration costs and,
So
to me, if it's $50 a year and there's 10 trucks versus $100 a year and there's 10 trucks, you're not talking a lot of incremental revenue for the city.
Right, I think that's what they were saying too,
You saying $50 a year?
Yeah. I'm just throwing it out there.
And $10 a what?
No, I was just saying if it were higher than that, it's not gonna impact the budget. We just need to cover our costs that we can. This is really about getting the citizens what it appears that they want is some choices from time to time, different food trucks coming in. That's what I think we're trying to solve.
Once you get by the application and get the permit written, that's about the highest cost you got. $50 ought to cover it.
But again, I think
We
committee,
can see what the committee comes back with and do this all again.
CDC?
Are they, when they get a permit, they come in and buy a permit, regardless of what the price is, forget about what the price is. That permit allows them to do what?
Operate in our city limits.
Where?
It's not
city limits,
anywhere in the city limits.
not private property, city property.
So if they come in
Unless
and
they
she
have-
issues them a permit,
That's up to
they
them.
can go down and open up their food truck
Right.
in front of,
Homestead?
or wherever, in front of his place, wherever,
Yes.
without a problem.
Well, they currently have to ask for a spot and get permission
That's what I'm
from us.
trying to find out.
They currently
If it's
don't, because we're not permitted.
Okay. And is that something committee should consider?
Locations of the
Location. I think that might be something we want to think about.
Well, I had a bunch of stuff in here about not blocking the sidewalks, not
Right.
having lines and the whole.
They can sit in front of Selma Park or across the street or at the post office or,
And then I think, consecutive days is something to think about. I think total days in a year is gonna be hard to police.
quit it.
Yeah.
I don't know who's gonna.
Nobody's counting over the course of a year.
And then time of the day, I think something else you consider, what's the rationale for limiting it?
I like where you're at.
There might be good rationale, I think the community just needs
I
to
like
think through it,
that.
talk to the food truck. I think, just had a good, Nikki or somebody said, hey, if the bars are still open till 2, why does it go till 2? Why would we limit it at all, I guess? is the question.
So Scott, just for clarification, there is no time limitation, so you can run a food truck, little food vendor can operate at any time of the day. The
Right.
CCA has limited time.
In an 8-hour period, gotcha.
But there's no time, now, there's an 8-hour window in which you have to
So,
operate.
why?
And so, that would be something for the council to discuss.
Right, I'm just wondering what the rationale is for limiting it to 8 hours.
Well, it was 3.
Well,
So
like,
we-
what was the rationale for 3?
Because it was a
I don't
sample
know.
ordinance.
That's what I
It was a
said.
sample
It was
ordinance.
just pulled from the same.
Oh, okay,
So-
gotcha.
The goal wasn't to pass an ordinance, the goal
We
was
have
to
to
get it
start
out and
somewhere.
discuss how
Okay.
we wanted this to
So I'll
look.
ask you this, do we want a time limit? Why would we want a time limit? We need to think about that. I don't have the answer.
Yeah.
Well, if they buy a $25 permit for the day, then that's the day.
If they buy
24
or
hours.
they buy an annual, and it's just, we could still do an annual fee and still have time limits,
Right.
but you'd have to enforce it.
I can see where, with building going on north and 2 places out east, where food truck coming in around 11 or 11:30 for workers who's working on houses or whatever, it's great.
Yeah, I don't think there's
Great
any
idea.
city location there they could park on. That's just.
They bring, you know, several.
That'd be a
They
case.
could come downtown, yeah, they could come downtown, you're right, yeah.
That takes away
You're
from the
right.
downtown parking, what we were.
But they're in the city limits.
Yeah, I mean, we gotta think about, you know, the road maintenance, they're parking on city streets, you know, all that fun stuff, so.
Okay.
All goes into the discussion. Anything else on this?
So do they all run on generator, or do they hook into our
I
electric?
think they all run
pole?
on generators. So our electric poles are shut off unless,
Right, you have to ask them.
and they're not 220s, they're normal outlets.
Mhm.
So they wouldn't run that type of equipment.
Yeah, I just thought
I think most of them, and Jess can correct me if I'm wrong, most of them have like a water tank on board that they fill up before they go out, and they have generators operate, or wood.
okay. We're losing Cory, we better move on.
Still here. All right, we'll send that back to committee too, so 4
Yep.
o'clock on Monday.
4 o'clock on Mondays.
All right. Okay, next, new business, budget amendment resolution. Glenn, I figured Ben would be here tonight.
Yeah, he had a conflict, couldn't be here tonight, so I'm not Ben. But I'll answer any questions I can. I get the boring part, I got all the budget stuff. So anyway, August, gotta be passing the budget. The first one was the budget amendment, which is amending, what we did in '24. We went over that at the last meeting because we exceeded, or were expected to exceed some of those expense limits on the '24 budget, so that's what that's doing on there. The next one's just the budget, and then the one's the resolution to exceed the revenue neutral, which we'll exceed that even though we're gonna drop our mill levy, proposed $1.50 on our budget. So, but I think the revenue neutral was around 38, we're still above 40. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
On our agenda, it has exceeding revenue neutral after the budget resolution. Do we need?
I don't think the order actually matters on that, so.
I just wanna make
They're
sure.
all three budget related, so we're gonna do the budget first, and we'll do you can take them up in either order, to be honest with you, and I don't think, as long as they get passed at the same meeting, that's the important thing. And what you're actually passing with the budget is what we actually published, which we publish our date and time for the meeting, so people have a chance to come in for a hearing, which does not happen very much, admittedly, but they do have a chance for all three of those hearings to come in and express their opinions, one way or the other on those. And so then we follow those, and we follow it up with resolutions on all of those. So what you pass on your 25 operating budget really is that one thing that was passed, which sets the mill levy and your spending limits for all your funds. So that's kind of a condensed, yeah. I included the budget book that Ben and his crew put together and all that, but that's just more for informational type purposes. So what the council passes actually is that one sheet, and then we sign all that, and that's what we send to the county and the state. So that's the state form that you have to pass.
Okay, so the first one we have is the budget amendment.
Yeah,
resolution.
that's for 24.
So refresh our memory on that, Glenn. So we publish a budget that's got expenditures by fund, and we run balanced budget law, right?
Right.
And so when we exceed any one of those funds, we've got to amend the budget, and I'm assuming that impacts reserve, or, I mean, when you're running a balanced budget, you've got to, where did the?
Well, I think we actually exceeded revenues as well, so,
Okay.
yeah. So it does still balance.
Yeah, so it's just expenditure-wise, you're still balanced because
Yep.
you have enough revenue
Right.
that came in to cover it. Okay.
Yep. And so we're okay as far as that goes, but that's a really good question.
Okay. I'm good with that.
Anybody else from the public want to speak to this agenda item? Otherwise, we'll just have Glenn stand here during council discussion. All right, council discussion on this agenda item? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Which one are we doing
The
first?
budget amendment resolution.
2024 amendment. I approve, a motion to approve the amendment of the fiscal year 2024 budget as presented.
A second.
Moved in second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Getting uncomfortable.
Holy crap. I never didn't expect that out of you.
I was uncomfortable with the silence.
That's efficient. Yeah.
Giving a week off and come on.
Yeah.
It's like, I was like, okay.
Ready to
Does all the
roll.
talking.
I thought maybe you guys like planned this after nobody's saying anything.
Okay, next, budget resolution.
Yeah, that's for 25.
So that is our current budget, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we're proposing to decrease a mill out of the general fund and a half mill out of the cemetery.
Cemetery fund, that's correct, yeah. And the reason we're doing that is because we're in a good situation. Our assessed valuation is growing, as Douglas County across the board really has seen that, and we have. For the past few years, we've seen our assessed valuation grow. So even though we're decreasing our mill levy by that $1.50 million, we are still able to meet all of our budget requests, within certain limits. We don't have unlimited funds, so we're still ahead. We're still gaining, but we're decreasing. We're proposing decreasing that mill levy. So it was published that way. So you cannot exceed that. You can go down from there, but you cannot exceed the published limit, which we did a couple of weeks ago. We published that for the hearing here tonight. So that's it. So after all the workshops and discussions and all that, that one page kind of summarizes everything as far as the past 2 years and then 25 going forward. Shows your mill levy, your assessed valuation, your debt service, everything is all compiled to that one handy little summary. And that's done by state form. So,
And just so the public knows, we published a half mil decrease, but we are decreasing a mill.
yeah, now we're proposing, yeah.
Or the proposed.
Yeah. So, and that's all really driven by our assessed valuation. We've had some good years as far as that goes, as most of the county here has.
Anybody from the public like to speak to this agenda item? Seeing none, council discussion? No, I'll entertain a motion. You can do it, Scott. We have faith in you.
What's the,
You have it in front
This
of
is
you.
the,
he's looking.
2025 budget resolution,
the operating budget.
the total budget, city budget resolution.
All right, I move to approve the 2025 fiscal year budget.
Second.
Moved in second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes.
And you guys are.
Next item, exceeding revenue neutral rate. Obviously, we are doing that.
Yeah, the revenue neutral rate, if we weren't gonna raise another dollar, would have been about 38 mils or something like that. And of course, our expenses go up, wages, everything we buy, insurance and all that has gone up. Like I said, we are actually decreasing our mill levy, but we're not at the revenue neutral rate. That's, I don't know anybody in the state who's actually gonna still operate at the revenue. I suppose there's some small city that's gonna prove me wrong, that will stay with the exact same revenue in 25 and 24. That's really hard to do though, so.
And it looks like, Glenn, just so people at home watching, looks like our wages, we're proposing a 5%, or budgeting 5% in wage increases. Healthcare increases are 18% is what we're projecting for next year.
Correct. Mhm.
KP&F retirement is basically 25% increase of cost.
And that's where most of those increases will come from the benefit side, they will.
Yeah. And then capers is 10%, so
Yeah,
we're seeing some pretty healthy double-digit
Yeah.
increases.
yeah. And the cost of the insurance is based on conversations with our health insurance provider. They said, look for an increase this year. They can never tell you exactly what it's gonna be, but, it won't be 5%. It's gonna be more than that. That's just the way healthcare has gone the past, 3 decades now.
Well, we've seen double-digit increases for the last.
It's been typical, yeah, it really has. Everybody loves our health insurance. It's a great benefit. They do us a great job, but it is expensive.
Anybody from the public like to speak to this agenda item? Seeing none, council discussion? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to allow the city of Baldwin City to levy a property tax rate exceeding the revenue neutral rate of 38.556 mils for the fiscal year 2025.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, nay. Motion passes. Brightspeed franchise agreement ordinance. Glenn.
I got an ordinance now, 3 resolutions now, an ordinance. You might not recognize the name, but you may have seen their trucks around town. They used to be CenturyLink, and before that, they were something else. That franchise we currently have with them is 20-something years old, I think 21 years old. So I got a call from their corporate headquarters and say, we need to update this. We're in your town doing a lot of work, and we notice that the franchise is out of date. And so we need to modernize that. So he sent me a template, and Dakota reviewed it and made a couple of changes to that here. So, and you know, that's it. Basically, it's very boilerplate. We don't have a lot of discretion as far as how they do their work here in, well, it's just like all these other franchises, whether it was Clearview or Clearwave or Mediacom or other. These things are all really just boilerplate type of things. So we kind of tailored that to fit our city, just changed out, you know, the names and dates and whatever in there. But that's about all you get. So there's information there about, you know, if you're gonna not renew, or it's like 5 years, 15 years, when you can, but that's all. I mean, that's in any franchise agreement you're ever gonna see. It's gonna have that same wording, and I've seen way too many of these things. So there's not a lot of excitement in that one. It's really a standard franchise agreement that you could be having with any telecom or whatever here in this city. But they're the ones that actually brought it to our attention. They said, you know, we're way out of date. So I did include the one, I think, from 2003 in the packet, so you can see how bare bones that is way back in the day. So they just wanted an update. I said, fine, just send me the thing, we'll get it done.
Check in there, I noticed in the term, it spelled out the word 15 and it had 30.
We did change that, yeah, at the last minute. Dakota actually caught that, and we changed that at the last minute. So the current one does, I think, just changed to 15 rather than the 30.
It's 15 with the
Yeah.
3 5-year
Right.
Yeah.
renewal.
Yeah, so we did catch that, yeah,
I'm on the website, so.
yeah.
And the other question is, I see, so the 2003 was 3% in 10-year term.
Yeah.
I see this is 4.75, did that change? Or did I read that wrong?
On what, Scott?
Franchise fee?
The fee itself,
4.25 on mine.
yeah,
4.25%.
that probably should be 5%. We charge everybody.
I'm just wondering why it's
5%.
different. I didn't know if telecom regulations in the state limited you. Why would we charge?
5% is standard. Yeah,
Why
the
would we
limit you can
charge-
go is 5%.
Okay.
Yeah.
My question is, why are we less than we're charging others?
No, we should be 5.
Okay, we should be at 5. Yeah, they wrote that in there. So,
Uh,
yeah, unless there's something because that's
So
always
it needs
been
to be 5.
Yeah, we cannot exceed that. We can
Okay.
exceed on your own, but you cannot on private enterprise. That's the limit.
We need to amend that to 5%?
Yeah,
Okay.
Section 4.
yeah,
Okay, that was the only question I had on it.
yeah. Otherwise, it's just really boilerplate language.
Can we approve it as amended?
Yes.
So, just one other question. It allows for 3 5-year automatically renewals on that.
Right.
What if our franchise fee goes up?
Well, right now, you couldn't unless they change the state law. You're capped at 5%.
Okay.
Yeah. So there'd have to be something happen at the state level to allow us to do that.
Okay.
Then we could probably revisit it. I don't see why you couldn't.
That was my only concern.
Yeah, it's been capped at 5% for decades, though. It really has, so,
Renewals. Okay. Just didn't want to pin us down.
right, yeah.
That's all I had.
So we can, okay. Anybody here from the public like to speak to this agenda item? Seeing none, council discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve an ordinance granting a franchise to Brightspeed of Kansas, Inc., United Telephone Company of Kansas, on behalf of itself and its operating affiliates Brightspeed to operate and maintain a telecommunications system, the system in the city of Baldwin City, Kansas, the city of parentheses, I don't know why I said that. As amended to change the 4.25 franchise fee to 5%.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Jerry?
Yes.
Corey?
Aye.
Scott?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Next, council committee reports, budget and finance, Scott.
Yeah, we did meet, most of the time spent talking about the 2025 budget, revisiting that, make sure we all understood it. And that's what you saw at the last meeting and we voted on tonight. And then we also talked about the salary study that we had done and talked about how we would incorporate that, what the options were. And I think based on the budget, so I don't think a decision's been made that I'm aware of, whether we go to the 60th percentile or 70th percentile, if you remember the budget workshop. But the budget we just passed allows us to do either or. It's a little more going to the 70th percentile, so we'd have to look at what the impact of that was to other things in the budget, but I think that decision needs to be made. I think the decision also the council needs to decide is, do they want to start the new salary schedule this year for the rest of the year, or start at January 1? Because how quickly we move on that depends on the council's.
I would probably go with January 1. Makes it.
Where the consensus of the committee, I think, is at this point, but it'll be an agenda item in the future, because we're waiting for more information that the committee asked for as well, too, so.
Sounds good.
So that was the extent of the meeting. And next meeting is gonna be September 6th at 7:30 a.m., second floor, City Hall.
Okay, community development, Corey?
We have not met since the last meeting. We meet next week, Monday, the 26th, 4 o'clock, second floor, City Hall. However, I do want to point out and maybe make it known to the public that this could very well be our last meeting in the library.
I'm gonna talk about that
Okay.
with council.
Just heads up on that, in case people show up for public comment, there's nobody here.
Yeah, I'll address that.
Okay. I didn't mean to take your thunder. Did I take your thunder?
No.
Are you mad?
No. It's only 6 years in making me, you didn't do anything wrong. Good?
Yeah.
Public safety, Jerry, did you guys meet?
We didn't have anything.
Okay.
That was 27th,
Next meeting is the 27th
27th
of August. At what time?
4.
4. Okay. Public works and utilities, Julie.
Yeah, we met on August the 8th. New generation, the switchgear has arrived, and some modifications had to be made to the door because it wouldn't fit through the door. So they did that. Generator control panels are being fabricated by Mid-States and should be delivered in August. If all remains on schedule, the units could be online by October. New substation, the trees have been taken down and the stumps will be removed soon. Discussed with Evergy regarding the new substation tie and the new location for the main meter. The Newton substation transformer will need approximately 8 hours outage sometime around the first part of October for maintenance. That can't be held off for the new substation, they have to do it before then. Generation will be done during this time so that there shouldn't be any problem with people's electricity being off. Main breaker will be swapped out during the outage so that it can be tested. Harbor construction will begin chip and seal road work the last week of August. The pool has been closed and drained. 20 water barriers were used for smoke on the bricks borrowed from Ottawa. We have 10 of our own now and 10 more have been ordered. Maple Leaf Committee has offered to donate $3,500 to help purchase them. The Baldwin Fire Department fills the barriers with the trucks, which is a huge help. And we'd like to thank the Fire Department and Maple Leaf Committee for all of their help. Council approved moving forward with the water sale contract to Franklin Rural Water District number 5. Public Works plans to rebuild the meter setter and flush the lines and flowing water to them by September 1st. Orchard Lane box culvert is now complete. West Water Tower was drained due to low chlorine. Opened the tower manway and saw a huge amount of sediment and flushed the bowl of the tower 3 times. Disinfected the areas that they worked in and then resealed the manway. They'll monitor and continue flushing as necessary. They may check about putting in a bigger mixer in the tower to help with the situation. And our next meeting is September 12th at 9 o'clock. And I would like to congratulate Dakota on his win.
Dude, you got read really fast. All right, strategic plan, Scott.
We have not met, we're waiting on the results from the employee survey. Any idea of when we'll be seeing that?
Ryan has had COVID. He reached out about a week ago, said that he'd be in touch sometime this week.
Okay. We'll set up a meeting to review that and bring the results to the council.
City administrator staff comments?
I was gonna talk about the Bauer building, sounds like you
No,
wanna talk
let's
about
say
it.
he's got some big presentation. Let him move.
I didn't have a presentation.
You didn't tell me
It's
to
all
say
right.
that.
Yeah,
I didn't want to
it's
get
all
lost.
good.
Seriously.
I was just gonna remind the council that we will be having our next meeting at the Bauer Building.
Officially.
Community Center. Yes, the chairs are gonna be delivered
Be able to do
the
it.
last week of August.
Sound?
They're working on the AV now,
Working on it, we're pretty close, I think.
so
We need to finish that up, but I think.
either way, we have the
Worst
mobile
case,
stuff.
we do this again.
Yeah.
So we will be having our next meeting at the community center.
Sweet.
Nice. Really,
That's it, I mean,
really cherish
you know.
these awards.
I thought you sounded like you had something bigger.
No.
I thought there was gonna be like an unveiling, like
I had said to you before about the water service that's coming into Edgerton.
Yes,
Okay, that is going to happen. I talked to the manager, his name is Wilson, and they are going to move a line in there.
yeah, we're still waiting on their agreement to purchase water from us.
Right.
They haven't even sent that back, so
Right.
we'll see. I hit up their mayor on July 4th about that, and he was supposed to be doing some checking, but I haven't heard anything back.
What's his name?
Dawn, no.
it's because the camera's on there.
It's not Dwyer, is it?
I talked to him a lot. Thanks for that, Jerry. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.